welcome to Church Experience Online. We're so happy you joined us today. As you watch this teaching video, if you have any questions or need help getting connected, please don't hesitate to reach out by phone or email. Also, our website is the best place to go if you would like to access helpful Growth Steps resources, join a serving team, connect in a life group, get your questions answered, or support this movement financially by giving online. At the end of this teaching video, you'll hear one of our Church Experience original worship songs, and we hope that gives you an opportunity to worship and reflect on what you learned. Thanks again for joining us at Church Experience Online.
One foot in front of the other.
Hey, we're off and running in a new year, 2018. How you guys feeling? How you feeling? It's crazy how we're already into a new year. I hope last year was great, but I hope this year is even better, and I'm really excited about what God's gonna do in your life this year. You know, it's fun to be in a new season and new things coming, and I'm really excited about what God's gonna do in your life this year. And you know what? I'm also excited to be home. We just got in yesterday. It's great to be back in Florida, to be home. We had a great time up in Michigan, Indiana, seeing family. But man, it's cold up there. Our vehicle was cold. I mean, it was covered in snow. I mean, literally like covered in snow. I don't have an ice scraper anymore. So like, how do you get the snow off? I mean, I don't need one in Florida, but man, it was so cold. I was taking screenshots on my phone of the temps, and it was like 1 degree one day. And I caught one where it was like -1 degree. And then the worst I saw on my phone was -7 degrees. I was like, that is cold, sub-zero. Like in Florida, when it's like 40s, we're like, man, it's cold. But it was like really, really, really like cold. Like you could die kind of cold. I'm explaining to my kids what like hypothermia is, and they're like, well, how long would it take to die outside? I'm like dressed with like no coat and stuff, like not long. Like you'd be dead pretty quick. It's just crazy cold. So I'm very happy to be home. I wish it was the normal 70s or higher right now, but this is great. We'll take it. This is our winter. It's not a bad winter at all. But I've titled today's message, Just Hit Reset. Just hit reset. And I think it's a great time of year to be talking about the power of unleashing a fresh start in our lives. And it's something I think we all need from time to time at different areas in our life to reset, get a fresh restart. You know, I'm interested in what it would look like if you and I could have a world-class decision maker come into our lives and make all of our decisions for us this year. Like what would that look like if someone who is amazing at making decisions would come into your life and just make every decision for you? The small ones, the large ones, and they just would tell you like yes or no, left or right, up or down, like this is what you do. And they were great at making decisions. Like what would your life look like this year compared to last year? And why can't we be the people to make those decisions? You know, our decisions really define us. And sometimes we just need a fresh reset in a new year to say, you know what, with God's help, I'm gonna prayerfully make better decisions this year. More God-honoring decisions. This year's going to be different. And I think that's the power of a fresh start is we say, I'm gonna do things differently than I have in the past. My future's not defined by my past. And so I'm gonna reset how I think about things. A mentor of mine, Pastor Steve Stroop, pastor of Lake Point Church in Rockwall, Texas. It's right outside Dallas. He came down here before we even started the church and was in this room standing on this stage and envisioning what this church could look like before we even started it. And he's been a mentor of mine for a long time. And he's been in his church for almost 40 years, pastoring this church. It's an amazing church, one of the largest churches in the country. And Steve has said that throughout his ministry, 40 years, how do you do that? How do you stay at something for 40 years? I aspire to that, and that amazes me. He says, well, what I've done is every so often, I don't know, every 3, 4, 5 years, he drives across Lake Hubbard, this beautiful lake right outside Rockwall. He drives across. They have something similar to our causeway that would drive you across the bay. And he drives outside of Rockwall. He leaves town. And he turns around and he imagines, as he looks at Rockwall before he enters it, he imagines this, that he's the new guy and he just got the job. And he's coming in and he's seeing it with fresh eyes. And he's saying, what would a new guy do if he could come into my scenario? If this was like a fresh start for him, like what would he do? And he drives across Lake Ray Hubbard and he comes into Rockwall and it's as if it's his first day on the job. But he's been doing it at this point for almost 40 years. What would it look like for you to kind of take a step back and then come back into your life, your routines, your relationships, your career, and come back in, but not changing everything. Like you don't need a new thing a lot of times. You just need a new perspective on it. And what would it look like for you to come back in this year and say, you know what, I'm hitting the reset button. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, but I'm gonna do it better. I'm taking it to another level. I'm gonna bring new passion, new energy, new excitement, new zeal, new prayerfulness, new spiritual intensity. Like, what if your marriage, what if it's not that you need a new marriage, that you just need to bring more to your marriage? What if you don't need a new job and a better job, but you need to bring more of yourself to your job? Right? What if you don't need new kids? You just need to bring more to your parenting, to your kids, right? I mean, what if you don't need a new home or a new apartment, but you just need to freshen it up? You just need to hit the reset button. Spiritually, I think this is so powerful. Like, what if we could just make some different decisions this year that would unleash some new, unlocked power in our life in every area? And I think this is just so powerful to hit the reset button. You know, every time you leave anything, like if you leave a job, say you've been on that job for 5 years and you leave, you tell your supervisor, hey, I'm leaving, I'm gonna try this new job and thank you, it's been great, and you kind of say your goodbyes. Well, they're gonna go out and they're gonna find somebody else. They're gonna be obligated to do that. They gotta keep it going, so they're gonna go hire someone else to take your position. And when that new person comes in, they're gonna do things a little differently and there'll be a learning curve. But inevitably, it always happens, they're going to find something that you were doing that they can do better. It always happens. They'll find something because of their personality, their past, their experience, the way they view life. They'll find something that you were doing and they'll do it better. Whatever occupation you're in, they'll find something and they'll say, you know, I can do this different, I can do this better. And they'll find something and they'll do it in some way, do it better. What if we could re-envision what we're doing and find those things, discover those things that someone else, if they were walking in our shoes, that they would do differently, if they would do better? You know, surely there's some area that we've overlooked that, man, I think I could do this different. I think I could do this better. And that's the power of hitting the reset button. Just hit reset. Reset your perspective, your vantage point on your life. How would someone else view what I'm doing and how I'm doing it? How would, more importantly, God view what I'm doing? In fact, this brings us to this really important question in your notes. I'm gonna encourage you to write this down, spend some time this week meditating on this, thinking about this, dwelling on it. Here's the question. What would Jesus reset in me? Like if he were in my shoes, what would Jesus reset in me? We had these bracelets when I was in high school that became a thing. Maybe where you were at, it was a thing too. But what would Jesus do? WWJD. What would Jesus do? What would he do in your life? Like, what would he reset? What would he do differently? And if he's the most wise, world-class decision maker there is, if he's the best person to go to for advice, then why don't we go to him and say, Jesus, what would you do in my situation that's different than what I'm doing? Because I want to get the results that you want in my life. I want to please you, Lord. And so, Jesus, what would you do differently in my relationships? What would you do different in my week and how I spend my time, how I invest it? What would you do differently in my career, my future, how I pray? Jesus, what would you reset in me? I got Jennifer for Christmas a gift that it wasn't my only gift to her, but I admit that this particular gift was also mutually beneficial. It was a gift for her, but you know, you ever give something maybe to a family member that you're also hoping that you'll benefit from it? Well, I got her, one of the gifts I got her was a new suitcase. And you're like, that's not very inspiring. And I agree, it's not. But we were both happy about this because anytime we would travel and take a trip together, which is probably one of our favorite things to do together, is go out and do something and have an adventure together. And we had this suitcase that we've had our entire marriage. In fact, it might have even been passed on to us. Like, it's been around a long time, like 15, 20 plus years. I mean, it was an old suitcase. And every time we would take the suitcase and pull it somewhere, like, it would make this horrible screeching sound as you drag it across the ground. I think I've even told some of you about this before. Like, the wheels, they would pop out from the weight of the suitcase, and then the middle section just, like, everywhere you go is horrible. So now we're like rolling in style. We actually have wheels that work on our suitcase, and we're just so excited about this new suitcase. And you know, sometimes when you're moving ahead, you need to let go of some of the past baggage. Some of the stuff in your past that was kind of, you know what I'm talking about, it's holding you back. What is it in your life that for you to reset, you need to kind of let go of, you need to move up in, you need to change, see differently? What would that be for you? You know, we have, you probably saw on the way in, a whole pile of old luggage outside. There's a big mountain of old suitcases that we found at Goodwill stores, and it was just like old suitcases. Someone walked in this morning, they're like, man, that one looks like it's from the 70s. I'm like, try the 50s, man. It's like, those are old suitcases. They've seen the world. They've traveled. They've been used and abused, and they've been discarded in the Goodwill store. We're redeeming them for God's purpose today. And here's how we're doing that. I want to encourage you sometime, and we're going to have them out there for a few weeks, but sometime in this teaching series, maybe today, go out there and grab one of the Sharpies. And I want you to write on there maybe a sentence or a word, something that you want to leave behind. You're saying, well, this in my life, I need to let go of it. I need to set it down so that I can move forward in the future God has for me. This is a habit that's been holding me back. This is an addiction that's just been clinging to my life. This has been an excuse that I've been making in my future, and it's been holding me back. Here's a fear that I'm setting down. What would it be for you? What's that thing in your life that just the old baggage that you need to let go of? Maybe it's some bitterness. Did someone step on your toes last year and hurt your feelings, and you need to forgive because that's hurting you? Maybe there's something in your life that you've missed out on, that's an opportunity you didn't get. Maybe someone said something to you, or you were overlooked for something, and that's been holding you back. Maybe someone spoke some lies into your life. And they say you're not good enough, or you don't matter, and you got to let that baggage go so that you can move ahead. Just hit reset. Just hit reset. But if you're going to hit reset, you got to let some things go. What would Jesus reset in our lives? Another mentor of mine, Pastor Dan Ryland, he's the executive pastor at our partner church, 12 Stone. He wrote an article just recently, beginning of the new year. He says, even good leaders can have bad habits, and there's some scary truths that hinder our ability to break through those habits in our lives. And when you think about this for your life, he said, scary truth number one is sometimes we don't even see that habit. You don't see the baggage that's holding you back. You don't see that bad decision you make over and over and over again. Scary truth number two, sometimes we justify the habit because of heavy pressure or high productivity. Sometimes scary habit number three is that sometimes we kind of like the habit and we don't want to stop. This is scary truth number four. Sometimes we lived with the habit so long that we've become used to it. We've settled into the lifestyle and adapted to that habit. Scary truth number 5 of 6. He says sometimes those around us let us off the hook when they should call us on it. Scary truth number 6. He says sometimes we minimize and dismiss it because it's not a real sin. And so what are the excuses maybe in your life that are holding you back? Just hit reset. Just hit reset. What could be different this year? What needs to reset? What needs to be renewed in your life? You know, I personally love this time of year with New Year's resolutions and setting goals and looking back and looking ahead. I love this time of year. And if you know me, you know that about me. I've said that before. But I think to me, it's not a secular thing. It's not a just make a resolution because it's a date on a calendar. To me, it's a spiritual thing. And it doesn't have to be this time of year. I continually do this in my life. But God, what do you want to reset in me? What God needs to change? And I think it requires an openness for us to do this, and we all have to humble ourselves and say, okay, there's certainly got to be some things in my life that God, if he could come in and just make all my decisions for me, which by his grace, and he allows you to make your own decisions, but if you would surrender those and say, God, what do you want me to do different? I want to be open. I want to be moldable. I want to be like that clay in your hands that you shape. What would God do in your life? What could he do? What if God could just get you in his hands to the point where you would say, God, I'm completely open. I'm fully surrendered. As much as I'm able to, God, there's no me in it anymore. I want you to have your way. I want you to do your thing. What would God do? What could he do? I mean, think of the potential. If you just had one person who said, God, my life is fully yours. What if you were that person? What if you said, God, my life is yours. Use me however you want to use me. God, do whatever you want to do in my life. What could he do? I think it could be incredible, be powerful. There's this amazing story in the book of 2 Kings. I've been going through the Old Testament, and man, it's just a powerful story. It's a story of a young king, younger than what I can fathom for the responsibility that he was given. His name is Josiah. I want to read about him in 2 Kings chapter 22. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 31 years. His mother's name was Jedidiah, daughter of Adaiah. She was from Bozkath, and he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, which not all the kings of God's people did what was right, but he did. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, and he followed completely the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the right or to the left. In the 18th year of his reign, so this puts him in his 20s, his mid-20s, Josiah, king, sent the secretary, Shaphan, son of Azaliah, son of Meshullam, to the temple of the Lord. So he sends him on a mission. And King Josiah, he's here in a unique time in history because there was kings before him that had displayed an incredible amount of wickedness. They had disobeyed God. They had not honored him. And in the past, they had brought so much wickedness upon God's people that God was going to punish them. So Josiah could not change what had happened behind him. But at the same time, the consequences God was sending on his people that were coming yet in the future, God didn't allow Josiah to change that. It was still going to happen. So he's kind of here in this unique window of time where he's honoring God, and the people behind him dishonored God. The people that were going to come after him were going to experience the consequences of God's punishment. And he's here in this era of life, and he's honoring God. Now, maybe you can relate to Josiah because when he took authority, when he took the kingship, and it was this based on his lineage and all this is why he was given this title. But surely he must have felt overwhelmed. It was probably so overwhelming, he probably didn't even understand how much he should be overwhelmed. It's so far beyond him, and he would have had counselors and advisors to help him in his youthfulness. But as he comes into his 20s, he's starting to make decisions, and he's leading and doing things that are far beyond his age. And maybe you, as you go into a new year, you can identify what we named our second worship album here at Church Experience, Battle, Storms, and Mountains. Maybe you can identify some battles that you're going into and you say, I'm ill-equipped for that. I'm not ready for that. Or maybe you're going after a mountain this year and there's something just incredible that you sense God's wanting to do in your life, but it seems like a mountain and you're like, I don't know how I can summit that thing. I mean, that's going to take everything in me. Or maybe there's a storm that'll happen that you don't even see coming yet. And you're like, I feel ill-equipped. I feel like Josiah, who's trying to lead a nation in his 20s and make decisions that impact thousands of lives. It's beyond me. And I would just say to you, like, God's power is made perfect in your weakness. His strength is glorified in our weaknesses. And even though you don't feel equipped to handle whatever God has put in front of you to do, whatever he's called you to do and prepared for you to do, I want you to know that you have one on your side this year that is more than able to help you with whatever you are called to do. Because he's our almighty God. And King Josiah, he's walking with the Lord. He's walking closely with the Lord, and he sends a messenger to the temple. He cares about what God's doing. He cares about things being done well for God. And in verse 8, the story goes on. Hilkiah the high priest said to Shaphan the secretary, this is the one that King Josiah sent to the temple, he says, I have found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord. So what had been neglected by past kings in their wickedness and their dishonoring of God, he says, I found this book of the law in the temple of the Lord. He gave it to Shaphan, who read it, and then Shaphan, the secretary, went to the king and reported to him, your officials have paid out the money that was in the temple of the Lord and have entrusted it to the workers and supervisors of the temple. They're fixing it up. They're doing these projects. Verse 10, then Shaphan, the secretary, informed the king, Hilkiah the priest has given me a book. And Shaphan read from it in the presence of the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his robes. He gave these orders to Hilkiah the priest, Ahikam, son of Shaphan, Akbor, son of Micaiah, Shaphan the secretary, and Asaiah the king's attendant. Go and inquire of the Lord for me and for the people and for all Judah about what is written in this book that has been found. Great is the Lord's anger that burns against us because those who have gone before us have not obeyed the words of this book. They have not acted in accordance with all that is written in there concerning us. Some think that this book that they found was the original manuscript, like of Moses, the first 5 books of the law. We call it the Pentateuch, the law of God, the documented history of how God created the world and the Exodus and God's laws and all this. And some think this was the original manuscript, some think it was an early copy, but they found it, they discovered it. It had been so neglected that there's like a book that sits at home on your shelf. It's so dusty, and you pick it up and blow off the dust. And they literally found it, and he brings it to the king, and he starts reading it to him. And Josiah, because he's a man of God, he responds to it. He tears his robes, and he says, we're undone. We haven't been following this. We haven't been honoring God. Great as his anger must be toward us. One more section here in verse 15. It says, she said to them, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. Tell the man who sent you to me, this is what the Lord says. I am going to bring disaster on this place and its people according to everything written in the book the king of Judah has read. Because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other gods and aroused my anger by all the idols their hands have made, my anger will burn against this place and will not be quenched. Tell the king of Judah who sent you to inquire of the Lord, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says concerning the words you heard. Because your heart was responsive. So Josiah, because you were responsive and you humbled yourself before the Lord when you heard what I have spoken against this place and its people, that they would become a curse and be laid waste. And because you tore your robes and went wept in my presence, I also heard you, declares the Lord. Therefore, I will gather you to your ancestors and you will be buried in peace. Your eyes will not see all the disaster I'm going to bring on this place. So they took her answer back to the king. They go consult with this godly woman, and she gives this word of God to them, and says that Josiah, there's wickedness that's in your lineage, and there's nothing I can do to change that. God's destruction is going to come, and it did, we know, historically eventually come on the nation of Israel. But God has saw you, Josiah, and how you responded to his word. Your heart was open and soft towards God's conviction. And you actually made changes based on what God was doing in your life. And so God's favor is falling on your life. His blessings falling on your life. You as a king, you will die in peace. And during your era, God's judgment will not fall. But it's going to come. And we can't change that because of what's happened. But your life, Josiah, will have the favor and the blessing of God on it because you were responsive. You were responsive. And it brings an important question to mind. It's in your notes. Am I responsive? Am I responsive? When God comes to me and says, hey, you need to hit reset. When you need to take a new step. When you need to make a change in your life. When you need to step up, step out, honor God in some area where you have not been honoring God. Are you responsive? Because that gets God's attention. That gets God's heart. When God looks and he sees his people who love him so much that when he speaks into their life, when they hear his written word like Josiah did, when they hear preaching and teaching when they're reading in their time alone with God, when they're praying and they sense that God's doing something and moving in their life, when they respond and make a change, when they act in an unpopular word in our culture, obedience, and they say, God, I submit my spirit to your spirit. And there's this independence in me. It's maybe accelerated in the country I live, a nation of independence, and we love that in our freedom. But God, I subject my freedom, my independence to you, and so much so that I'm dependent upon you. That God, whatever you say goes, I will submit my life and my freedoms to you, God. Whatever you want to do in my life is not really my own. It's yours, I surrender it. That kind of life finds favor with God. God does exponentially more in your life as you open up to him and you say, God, what do you want to do in my life? And you respond. Josiah heard God's word and he was responsive. He hit reset. The baggage from his past he couldn't change. And maybe as you walk back and forth past that baggage in this teaching series, I hope you will stop and write something down and symbolically maybe let some things go and maybe prayerfully let some things go as you write that out. But as you look at that, you can't change the baggage of your past. You can't rewind the tape. It would be so nice to be able to rewind. Did you ever think about that? If I could go back, redo that decision when I was 21 years old. If I could go back and redo that decision when I crossed into 30, if I could just make a different career change, or if I could have got in a different relationship or not got in that relationship or not made that bad decision. Man, what if I could go back? What about that one decision when I was 10 years old? Man, what about when I graduated college or my first job or the major I picked in school? And you can't play that game because the reality is you can go back and change it. What good does it do to waste your life now thinking about all the things that you wish you could do different? Everybody has a story. Everybody has a past. I've talked to enough people in life now that realize that everybody has a story, and you have yours. Can't change it. But God gives us this great gift to learn from the past. And so to the extent you look back, let it be helpful to what you can learn as you move forward, but focus your sights on what's ahead of you, the road in front of you, this new year. Hit reset. Say, God, I can't change the past. I might have some baggage from the past, but as I move ahead, God, you can do new things. You can do greater things in my life, and I submit my life to your direction. Am I responsive? Am I responsive to God's will in my life? A good friend of mine told me about a time that he and his wife were together with another friend of theirs, and my friend had left his phone on the table, and his friend, we'll call his friend John takes the phone of my friend, and he, without my friend realizing it, changes his phone number with his wife's phone number. So my friend's wife, her phone number on the phone is changed now to say John, and John's number is his wife. So they're all hanging out. He doesn't know this happens. My friend and his friend John say goodbye, and they part ways. The next morning, my friend gets a text from his wife. It's not really his wife, it's his friend John. And John texts this message to my friend. Again, he thinks it's his wife. And it says, why is it always about you? It's always about you. We're done. He looks at this and he's like, what? Like, we're not in a fight right now, me and my wife. Like, everything's good. Like, we're done. Why is it always about me? And he's texting back, like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't think it's always about me. I love you. I'm crazy for you. And he gets another message like, it's just about you. It's always about you. And he's getting this message. And then finally, like over a period of time, he's like getting these messages. He's so confused. And he's wanting to go home and see his wife. He's out. And he finally figures out, he looks at the number, and it's not his wife that's texting him. It's his friend John that's been messing with him and sending him all these messages like, hey, just messing with you, buddy. And so he gets that all straight, but then he goes home, and when he sees his wife, he gives her the hugest hug, and he's like, I'm so glad that things are good between us. And she's like, what are you talking about? Explains the whole scenario. I had a friend in Michigan that he was known for. Anytime that someone in their office, they worked, anytime that someone would leave their social media up on their screen, he would go into their computer, and he would get on their account, and he would post something in their name that was not their own name. So he would say something crazy like, I'm so happy, I just found out I'm pregnant. And it's like someone who's not even pregnant at all. And then they would come back later and have like 100 comments, oh, congratulations, and they had to fix it. And it wasn't them at all that had wrote that. And it's like, he would do crazy stuff like that. Over Christmas, we got together with all the siblings, all the cousins, the aunts and uncles, the grandparents and all that. It was fun to see everybody. And some of the adult kids that were together, there's about half a dozen of us. We were having a game night one night and sitting around talking, and someone sent a group text message, and they sent a GIF. And, this images that sometimes will have words on them or a funny little quick clip. And everyone saw this and just started laughing. And even though we were together in the room, people started slowly picking up their phones. Your phone would buzz and you look, and everyone was laughing. And so there was this conversation that started, but it was never being spoken because someone else replied, and they sent another GIF back to everybody. And pretty soon, there was this GIF battle that emerged, and everyone's sending these GIFs to each other, these funny little comments and little images. And an hour later, everybody had sent dozens of these messages. We're dying laughing, and it was just the most hilarious time. But I was thinking about the power of technology now, and whether it's you texting someone a message, or it's on social media, or exchanging, a lot of the power of it is in the responsiveness of it. It's the fact that you can reach out to someone. I don't even get how it really works that I can send a message and instantly, someone in another country can see what I just sent. It blows my mind. Then my family up in Michigan, that I could send a message and within a second, they could be praying for me about something that I asked them to pray for. Just like that. And it blows my mind that technology exists, but it's now a part of our world and is resisted as much as you might. It's here, or excited as you are about it. It's here either way. And the power of it, it's the responsiveness, right? You think, why is it so unique? Why does it caught on so much? It's because instantly you can make a post and everybody can see it. Instantly you can make a comment. Someone else can reply. You can send someone a funny image and a moment later get one back. It's that responsiveness that connects people, that connects us with each other, even though we might be separated by the miles or by time or by location. It's that responsiveness that allows us. That's the impact of it. And it's your responsiveness that connects you to the Father. It's your ability to receive a message from God and respond that connects you to him. See, God's always speaking. He's been speaking before you drew your first breath. And he'll be speaking after you've drawn your last breath. God's eternal. We call him the Alpha and the Omega, the Greek alphabet, the beginning and the end. He's always been there. He's always be around. He's forever. He's eternal. We can't comprehend God. He's infinite. He's eternal. He's always speaking. It's not a matter of is God speaking, it's are we hearing? Are we responding? Are we responsive? See, God's speaking truth into your life. His word is living and active, it tells us. He has truth for you. He has blessings for you. He has honor for you. He has so much that he wants to do in your life if you'll respond, if you'll be sensitive to his spirit. And Josiah, when he found the word of God, when it was discovered and brought to him and read in his presence, he tore his robes. He was responsive. In fact, I want to read this verse to you in another translation. You probably know this, but there's a lot of different translations of the Bible, and the Bible was primarily written in Hebrew and Greek, the Old Testament Hebrew, some Aramaic, but then also Greek, and it was translated. And so whatever language, whether it's Spanish or German or English, there's not always an exact word, and so scholars get together, and they get usually dozens of them that have their PhDs in language arts and all these things, and they get together and they study that language, and they say, what did this actually mean in our language? And so it's never a perfect translation, but it's very close, and we typically use the New International Version here. It's one we've been using since we started. It's not the only one. There's a lot of great translations. There's some inaccurate translations, but the majority of them right in line. And I like sometimes to look at what another translation will say about it because it kind of helps you see a different perspective on it. And so let me look at a couple of different translations of 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 19. This is the New American Standard Bible. It says, because your heart was tender and you humbled yourself. That word tender in there. That helps me see that a little differently. It's tender. 2 Kings 22:19 from the ISV, the International Standard Version. It says, because your heart was sensitive. Josiah, because your heart was sensitive and you humbled yourself in the Lord's presence when you heard what I had to say. So they almost say identical things, but the different words they use, that helps me. They're sensitive, tender. You were open. So Josiah, you were sensitive to what God was doing. Your heart, it wasn't hardened. And I wonder sometimes if our hearts get hardened toward what God wants to do in our lives and our future because we've been calloused by the world, by failures, by sins, by the hurts of the baggage that we need to sit down. And what Josiah did, regardless of the baggage of the past of this nation, He said, God, my heart will be responsive. I will honor you, regardless of what those before me did. I can't control that, and there's baggage. Our country has baggage, but in my generation, God, in my season, while I lead, I'm going to honor you. And he reaped the blessing of that. You get to decide. You can't control what your parents did or did not do in your life. Whether they pointed you to God or whether they brought pain into your life, you can't control that. With your upbringing, with your past, with your mistakes in your last decade of life, you can't change it. But what you and I get to do is to say, God, in this season, now, I'm going to honor you. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to serve your purposes in my life. So, what is it that you need to be responsive to? What is God doing? He's doing a new thing. It's a new season. Every day is a new season. Every day is my favorite day. Every moment is my favorite moment because that's the only moment that I get. The past is gone. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Today is the day. It says in the Bible, rejoice in the Lord. Like, this is the day. Rejoice in today. Today is the day God gave you. So rejoice in this moment. He's doing a new thing in this new season of your life. What changes do you need to make? Now, this won't be easy. Doesn't guarantee that it's going to be easy. In fact, it'll be challenging. But if you'll commit your heart, there's so much more that God would love to do in your life. And 2 Chronicles 16:9, I'd love for you to get your eyes with me on this verse we have here on the screen, 2 Chronicles 16:9. It's a verse that to me has spoken to me for so many years about the commitment that God's looking for. It says, for the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are what? Fully committed to him. And I've just always loved this verse, and I bring it up from time to time because I think this thought that God's eyes are ranging throughout the earth. Like he's literally looking. And he's looking, he's like Palm Harbor, Clearwater, Dunedin, Largo, Seminole, Oldsmar, Safety Harbor. I'm looking around, I'm trying to find somebody in this area. I mean, there's tens of thousands of people this morning who are not in a worship service. They're worshiping, sure, they're just worshiping something else, some idol in their life. They're worshiping their career. They're worshiping their finances. They're worshiping pleasure. They're worshiping the next sunset, the next moment, the next activity or theme park or attraction that they're chasing, their next relationship. They're chasing the next high, the next advancement and promotion. There are all kinds of things they're worshiping in their life, but nothing that's going to bring them fulfillment, nothing that's going to last them into eternity, nothing that they won't regret one day when they get to the end of their life, and especially as they see God in eternity. They're worshiping, but they're not worshiping the thing that's going to change their life. And God's looking, he's looking in our area, saying, who will step up and share the gospel, the good news of Jesus that's going to transform it? Like who will stand in the gap? And his eyes are looking for those whose hearts are fully committed to him. And when he finds someone, when he finds you, he says he will strengthen you. You say, I can't do this alone. I can't be Jesus in my workplace. You don't know his dark place and to be light there. I mean, it's like, you remember when Jesus was crucified? That's what's going to happen to me if I try to step up for Jesus in my workplace. Listen, if you fully commit your life to him, God will strengthen you. He will empower you. He will fill you freshly with his Holy Spirit. Have I committed this year to the Lord? It's another question maybe for the new year as you reflect on your life. It's in your notes. Have I committed? Have I fully committed my life to the Lord this year? As you reflect on that question, have I fully committed? Knowing the goals are not going to be easy, I want you to hear just for a moment just really quickly, from a mentor of mine, Pastor Kevin Myers, from our partner church, 12 Stone, as he talks about the challenge and why we don't see the goals we go after accomplished. Check it out.
See, the reason many of us perhaps never conquer is because we never really devote. We give half-hearted yeses. For example, why do I not have the level of fitness I dream of? Well, the honest answer is because I have a half-hearted commitment to eating right and working out. That's just the truth. I don't want to admit that, but it's true. Here's how I know. When the family was talking about going to Tom and Chi, I said, I'm in. Any of you hear about the new Tom and Chi down near the Mall of Georgia area. It was highlighted on Shark Tank. Oh my goodness. This is a grilled cheese sandwich shop that will blow your mind. So we all go on like, I'm all in. I know this isn't healthy for me. This isn't going to help me at all. I'm in. And then when the family ordered this grilled cheese donut s'more, are you kidding me? A what? It's a grilled cheese style donut with chocolate, marshmallow, and graham cracker, married into one bite. And therefore I said yes to fat and no to fit. Immediately, I was in. And therefore, I was half-hearted in my fitness, because that's how half-hearted always works. Hey, that's how it works in fitness, and why you never really become fit as you dream. And by the way, that's how it works in faith. See, many of us say yes to God when we're young, but by the time we hit our college years, we drift away, and it becomes half-hearted. Or maybe we call ourselves Christ followers, but then as soon as the equivalent of a moral temptation, like a Tom and Chi opportunity, come our way, we say yes to temptation and no to God. And maybe that's how we end up worshiping on the weekends whenever it's convenient, but only when it's convenient. If it's convenient, I'll worship. And we read God's word when it's convenient. We pray when it's convenient. We give when it's convenient. And here's the problem. Convenient never builds anything worthwhile.
Convenient never builds anything worthwhile. So if I'm half-hearted in my commitment to Christ, if I'm not fully committed, if I'm partially committed, if I'm halfway in, there's this hesitancy in my spirit. There's this hesitancy that holds me back from seeing God unleash the victories he wants to unleash in my life. What victories are being delayed in your life because you're not fully committed? That question, have I committed this year to the Lord, is an important question. It's a huge question. One final lesson today I think is so powerful. And that's that don't be surprised when large goals require giant efforts over a long time. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when God brings some goal into your life, some new direction, a commitment, and you decide to step into it. Don't be discouraged when you realize that it is a mountain. It's not just a hill. When you walk into that thing and you realize, man, for this to change, it's going to take everything I've got and then some. That's where the dependency on God comes in. The beyond you comes in, where God, I need you. And maybe some of you are discouraged because you set some goals as you came into the new year, and you're already discouraged because you're realizing how hard they are. Maybe you've already failed. You already need a reset, and it's like January 7, and you're saying, God, I don't know. I don't know if I can change. I don't know if I can do a new thing. I don't know if I can see this movement happen in my life that I want to see happen. But I would encourage you to say that any great result requires great effort sustained over a long period of time. And I want to encourage you to get around other people that can help, encourage you. This is the power of being a part of a local church, is that there's a group of us who are saying, God, I want you to do something new in my life, greater in my life, and I can't do it alone. And Henry Cloud, he said that we know from research that growth is actually contagious. So if you want to reach your goals, you've got to get around people that are going in the same direction that you are going. And that's what we're doing. We're all headed towards Jesus, and we're saying, we want to live lives that honor you, Jesus. So we're going to do it together. We're going to lock arms. I'm going to pray for you. And by the way, I'm praying for you as your pastor. I want you to know that I pray for you regularly. I hope you pray for us, and I hope you pray for each other. And that empowers us, and I hope you'll encourage each other. When you see someone down this year, lift them up. Take some time to get alone. Go out and grab coffee with somebody. Maybe invite someone over to your home for a meal. Get together, encourage each other. Let's lock arms together. Let's move forward as a unit, as a team, as an army, the army of God. Let's take new ground this year for God's kingdom. I'm excited. We're providing some air support for you this next week. There'll be a mailer that hits tens of thousands of homes in our community this week, inviting people to come, and has I think a really important question on the front of the card. It says, looking for a meaningful life and fulfilling relationships, and has all the information about our church community, church experience on the back, and how they can be a part of it and join us in that. And you know, I expect there could be some people that will show up from that. Last time we did it seemed like people showed up from that, and I think that'll be great. But I think that a lot of people will get something like that, and it'll cause them to ask a question. Man, that would be great to be a part of something, but they'll throw it in the trash. And this is really air support for us this week, to go into the lives of the people around us, our neighbors, the people we work with, and extend the actual invite. Be that person to link arms and link up with and say, hey, come do the journey with us. Come join. If you're looking for friendships, you're looking for a fulfilling life, come. Basically what you're saying is come follow Jesus with me. And the practical step is just come check out our community, this church, this new church. Come join in with us. And being a part of a local church, bringing in the spiritually lost, encouraging each other, being on mission. I'll tell you, there's no greater way to live, to wake up every day and know you have a mission for God and say, God, we get to be your hands and feet in this world. We get to be your light in this dark world. It's a powerful thing. So what is it? What is it that you need to do? What is it that you need to do different? Where do you need to hit reset this year? To be on mission with God, to make a difference, to be light, to take your life to the next level. Where is it that you need to hit reset? You probably know better than anyone else what you need to do, but the question is, will you do it? Growing up, we had this little gray box that sat next to our big tube TV. We couldn't imagine flat screens back in the day. We had these monstrous big tube televisions. You probably remember them. And our little gray box was called a Nintendo. And you know what Nintendos are, but this was like the original Nintendo, not Super Nintendo, not Nintendo whatever. This was like straight up old school Nintendo, and it had the cords running behind the television, and you would try to screw them in and get a good signal. And once you got it all set up, you'd pop in these big, huge discs, these games, and you pop them in and you hit the power button, and you'd have a couple controllers, very simple, but very fun, and it would keep you busy. Me and my two younger brothers, we loved it. We had so much fun on the Nintendo, spent hours playing together. And every once in a while, because it was new technology, it was advanced, it was high-tech technology, the old school Nintendo used to be. And every once in a while, though, because it was a new technology, it would kind of short circuit. And the game would, you remember, right? It would like freeze up on you, and you'd be like mid-game, or you'd be trying to get it started, or you'd switch something, and it would just freeze on you. And you'd be like, oh man. And so sometimes you would hit the power buttons. Sometimes you would take the game out. We'd blow on it. You remember, like blowing on the game, thinking that would work, putting it back in there, and you would try everything you could to get this thing to work. And it would never work. But every once in a while, it would just do this little freeze-up thing, and there was the power button. You knew you could restart, unplug, all that, but there was this one button that we would always hit that it just seemed to help so much. It's the reset button. And I loved hitting the reset button because it just gives you it just start over. And whenever it would work, when you'd hit it, and it was awesome because, all right, we're back in the game. Here we go. Let's start a new game. And I think, man, that you don't even realize it, but you have the power of the reset button in your life. And that's through you access that through God's power in your life. That any time in your life, it doesn't have to be on January 1, January 7, it doesn't have to be at the new year. But when you realize, God, I'm not where I want to be. I want to see some things change. I want to see you do a new thing in my life. You just reach out, you just hit reset. You say, all right, God, today's a new day. This day is your day. And God, I want you to do something new in my life. I'm stepping it up. I'm stepping out. I'm going to make a difference for you. God, I'm going to honor you. I'm going to get time with you. Reset. And you wake up into that new day and you say, all right, here we go. You don't let that baggage hold you back. You don't let your past experience hold you back. You say, God, it's a new day. And I'm going to hit reset. Here we go. Right on? Come on, everybody now. Right on?
Thanks for joining us at Church Experience Online. Please don't forget to check out the website if you'd like to get more connected, learn more, get your questions answered, or support this movement financially. You're now going to hear a Church Experience Worship original song, and we hope this gives you an opportunity to worship and reflect on what you learned today.